Welcome to the Vibe Within podcast. I'm your host, Gab Cohen. Each week, we will connect through stories and conversations about wellness, yoga, addictions, spirituality, mental health, rituals, and everything in between. The goal is to transform our traumas into strengths to create the change we desire in our lives. My mission is to help others by shining awareness on real-life topics so we can learn new ways to heal physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Whatever you are going through in this moment, you are not alone, so let's connect and heal our vibe within. To the Vibe Within podcast. I'm your host, Gab Cohen, and I have a really exciting episode to share with you guys today because I got to sit down and finally have a really deep and soulful conversation with my friend Jennifer Sodini. Before I get into who she is, I hope that you guys are all doing all right out there with quarantine. I know that it has been pretty triggering and challenging for some of us who have lost jobs and are struggling financially, struggling with family or whatever it is. Just being isolated in general is really challenging. And if you're anything like me, then you're already kind of isolated and introverted before the quarantine. So now there's this extra little layer of isolation, which really makes it even more of a time to focus on shadow work and healing relationships in our lives. As corny as that sounds, I mean, as much as our culture is so obsessed with online dating and, meeting people, right now is the time just to start healing our friendship wounds or any trauma that we've had with family members, sisters, brothers, friendships that have kind of drifted off into space over the last however many years. Right now is a really good invitation to reconnect and reestablish those relationships, because at the end of the day, that's who we're left with. And instead of focusing on connecting with strangers online or through dating apps, it's really this perfect time to focus on ourselves and stop wasting energy on people we don't even know. With that said, today, even if you don't know Jennifer Sodini, you're gonna love her because me and her go deep on so many different topics, from the quarantine and coronavirus to spirituality and conspiracy theories to dating and friendships and friends with benefits and just getting through life right now in this weird time that we're in. We don't talk about quarantine the entire time. This is a very full-bodied and well-rounded conversation about just all things creative, spirituality. We talk about psychedelics, we talk about mental health, we talk about, moving, and we talk about how the universe can knock us off our path for good reasons, and we talk about synchronicities and rock bottoms. So there's going to be something in this for everyone. And just a little bit about Jennifer. She's an author, a public speaker, and the founder of the conscious media platform Evolve and Ascend. Through her travels and research, she has visited some of the world's most sacred esoteric places, including Egypt, Nepal, Tibet, and Bhutan. A lifelong student of the occult, she now shares her knowledge through a wide variety of endeavors, including her beloved internationally published Oracle card deck, which is in partnership with Natalee Miller. It's called the Amenti Oracle, Heart Deck and Guidebook. And you can also find her on her podcast, Radio Amenti, where you can probably find this episode over there as well because we did a podcast swap. So I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. I was melting on my floor when I was talking to her, and she's just a really fucking cool human. So let's just get right into it. Enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a very weird thing, I guess, that I have somewhat, I don't want to say taken for granted, but almost gotten so used to that I don't realize that other people have like 9 to 5, 40-hour a week office jobs, or,
Mm-hmm.
how detrimental that has to be to kind of go from this is my routine to now I'm stuck inside.
Right. And it's kind of like people get so comfortable, even if their job isn't like comfortable for them, even if they're not really enjoying it, they've gotten so comfortable in the fucking groove of it all that,
Yeah.
like for me, this is kind of just like a continual of my own isolation and spiritual solitude. But and in the midst of it all, I'm in my dark night of the soul and Saturn return and whatever the fuck you want to call it. But for quote unquote normal people, I mean, I hate using that term, but like for people who just aren't really like doing the spiritual thing, or like maybe they kind of are, and they work a lot and they have a family, like now it's really like everybody's faced with um their life, like literally, like what does your life look like other than work?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's a crazy thing to consider. I don't know what your conversations have been like around this whole thing, but I've kind of gone through most of my friends are pretty pragmatic, but teeter on the edge of like this is something bigger.
Oh,
And
for sure.
you know,
Yes.
like, and I've heard a lot of different conspiracies, and I myself have gone through a roller coaster of emotions of what this really means.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I have this weird feeling of not necessarily being afraid, but just kind of like, all right, well, we're on the brink of collapse
Mm.
as it is. So if you know that the next 10-year trajectory of life on this planet is completely unsustainable and you have access to like trillions and trillions of dollars, like wouldn't you engineer some kind of bioweapon or something to keep people at fucking home? I don't know.
Hey, I mean that is a different aspect of it. That definitely is. I wasn't even thinking about that perspective, but dude, that really is. I mean, if you want to get kind of scary political dark movie angle, um like I that could very well be. And the hippie that I am, I haven't really thought of it like that. I thought, but now you're opening my fucking eyes to that. So now I'm like, oh shit, I got to journal on that. But like the other night, I journaled for I don't know like 5 or 6 pages, just whatever came through, and it's all kind of the same shit that everybody's talking about on Instagram, like Mother Earth is it needs to heal the fires, the carbon pollution, so kind of like an earth saving mindset, but also the perspective of how our country, I mean, isn't really doing that well from like a standard of living perspective. Like people are obviously always talking about how much money people are making, healthcare, um, just racism, like just inequality all around. And I think that when it comes to health, that is one thing that the majority of the world can agree upon, is that health is very important. And I think that it's kind of funny because it seems like the United States of America isn't really that health conscious with how much, fast food is so popular, and processed foods, especially in like the lower income like pockets of our country. But now all of a sudden that there's a virus, that it really it's like just awakening. It's helping the asleep awaken in very low grade terms.
Totally. And it's funny because I've been trying to look at it from every angle, right? Like if it is some big conspiracy or if it is like Mother Earth literally just needing a reset and this happening. And I don't know,
Hmm.
the spiritualist in me thinks there's no coincidence in the fact that, literally the lungs of the earth have been on fire for like months and months and months.
Hmm.
And this attacks our lungs in such a detrimental way.
Wow.
And in Chinese medicine, they say lungs are where you carry grief. And if you think of the collective grief of the planet, of how we've evolved so much technologically, but where we are in the inequalities and the way that the wealth divide and just
Totally.
where we're at now, that people even have to suffer at all or there has to be any lack is outrageous.
Completely. Yeah. I mean, I have been feeling very grateful and very privileged as of recently, and it gets even more and more intense as current events roll out. But like, I really liked one of the podcast episodes that I heard on Sam Harris's podcast, and he was talking to someone about just equality and doing good better and being a good person, and how how daunting it is for people who are, maybe lower income, but they're still getting by, but just scraping by, like just barely scraping by. And how daunting it can be to really put into perspective of how small they are, like an ant in an ant farm, of how much money they make. And then there's just people out there who have so much money they don't know what to do with it. And this is like a common obvious issue that our country has, because we're obsessed with fame and success and money and upward growth, and the addiction to like our businesses succeeding, and like this sick twisted kind of like desire to be famous, even if you're not doing anything with your life. um
Yeah.
and like now it's literally kind of forcing our collective, our society, to press pause on everything and turn within. So I think that's another angle of it, is that not only is like the earth needing physical healing, but what we're a product of the earth, and humanity as a whole needs healing physically and emotionally. So what the virus is doing is like basically putting us in a spiritual isolation to press pause on our mindset. I And just kind of do all the things that we have been putting on the back burner.
100%. And the thing is about it where the blessing is that it just I I can't imagine the trajectory of that kind of consciousness continuing. My biggest fear is that this will pass and things will just go back to how they were.
Exactly.
Um, I have, mixed emotions about Daniel Pinchbeck because I have a complicated relationship with him, and he's a friend, but he, is a controversial character. But he has this one quote about how we live in a culture where everything tastes good and nothing
Mhm.
satisfies. And I think that's because inherently, people are looking to fill a void with accolades or material possession or accumulating wealth when really that void is something deeper. And I really resonate with it. Taking this time to go inward spiritually, I think is going to offer a lot of clarity and perspective, hopefully, for those who maybe really need it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's beyond I mean, I feel like the first layer of our country receiving the news was just fear. And um fortunately and unfortunately, I'm around news being broadcasted in the house that I'm in like 24/7. And I was actually pleasantly surprised the other night. I was like walking by the TV in my own little world, and I heard one of the news reporters saying, "Oh, like maybe this is a good time to do that home project." And this is like normal ass news. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's and I was just like, "Wow, like That's fucking crazy. I would never have thought that they would actually ever say that, but, I think that the first layer of fear is slowly, kind of disintegrating, and now people are just realizing that we overreacted and that this is a time to, yeah, it sucks. People rely on their paycheck, especially people who work paycheck to paycheck. I couldn't even imagine that. I'm very lucky that I am living with family right now, but it's also going to be a very triggering time for people. So I like I feel like this is kind of a catalyst and a you know an introduction for people who don't know what shadow work is, who don't know what being triggered feels like. This is like the gateway, because people are being forced, quote unquote, to stay at home, away from their job. All the things that fill the void, working out, going to the bar, going to restaurants, all these things that have to do with material money and spending, and look at me and look at what I'm doing, and Instagram stories, and the perfect Instagram food, photo. None of that really matters right now because FOMO doesn't exist right now. Everybody is fucking quarantined, and it's like everybody is forced to just deal with their reality, and that can be very dark.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing to do is to like really look in the mirror. And we're so lucky because we have, I mean, I'm older than you, but it's still, I mean, it's different now. Like to be 34 is different than it was, 20 years ago to be 34.
Hmm.
People are having kids later in life. We're choosing different choices. But, to really reflect on choice and what got us from point A to point B, what other situation in life could allow that for some people. This
Hmm.
pandemic has so many layers of blessings and beauty, even in the uncertainty and ugliness.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I was talking to a friend the other day who he works in film production, and um, we talk film language, and I was like, this is just like the most perfect script that like the universe could have tailored, and it's just like so thought out, and the plot just makes sense, and it's just like we're sitting back and we're the characters, and um there's just so many hidden meanings and subliminal messages within everything that's going on. Like there's so many different angles and perspectives of why this is happening, and the majority of them are positive, like, oh, this is because we need to get out of burnout mode, because like everybody for the past like year has been talking about burnout and overworking ourselves. And I think that, I mean, if this isn't your perfect like prescription for getting out of burnout, I don't know what is, a fucking pandemic. Like, can't even like make that shit up.
I know. Well, the other like layer to it that I've been thinking about a lot lately too is like almost 6 years ago, I went to my friend put together this thing called the Summit on Technological Unemployment,
Mhm.
where all of these thought leaders got together and were talking about what society would look like in the future when certain jobs become rendered meaningless because of technology. And there were all these amazing speakers just talking about how that's a real reality, how we're going to lose so many jobs, like lawyers, tech people, and part of it at the end, we were doing these little workshops where what would structure look like when you didn't have to work?
Mhm.
It's like, what a crazy thing to consider. So, like, thinking about being unemployed by technology, or then just even thinking about, like, I think the more time people have to kind of like sit in this feeling, if they're sitting in it and from like a contemplative or introspective way, is how a lot of the stuff that we've been sold is such an illusion. And to give like 40 years of your life to something meaningless just to like go for a 401k plan and to burn out to that degree, like what for?
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad because I think about this all the time, and like my dad is like the perfect example of that. Like he has been working with this company that my uncle's, created, and he likes it. He loves it. I mean, he's been part of the company for like 30 years, or maybe like 20 years. But I heard this quote, and I actually like just wrote it down today, and it was the greatest burden for a child is the unlived life of a parent, and it's by Carl Jung. And like,
Wow.
and it's fucking, it hit me so hard because it's like, yo, that is my dad. Like I have been trying to like explain to him that like he works too hard and he needs to enjoy his life more, and he works way too much. Like you need, let's go on a vacation, let's do something. And his excuse is, oh no, I have work. And then he has like a side business. So he has a landscaping business on the side, which, and he's like 55 years old, and he looks really young and he's in shape, but still it's like it just makes me sad as, you know, a millennial. I feel like our parents tried to give us exactly like the perfect childhood that they didn't get. And like the baby boomers or Gen Z or whatever it is, they are they are like super workaholics, and they don't know any other way because technology hasn't fallen into their lap as easy as it has for us. So I feel like the whole not being a slave to a 9 to 5, it doesn't like register with them as easily as it does with us, because we have more of a like creative way of seeing how we can make money. And we most of us in the millennial or the entrepreneur kind of world views money as energy, and that's a whole type of perspective that maybe our parents would think we're crazy when we're talking about energy as money. And it's easy to make money, but like it's a whole different world for them. And it's I feel like we kind of are taking on that grief and that shame and that guilt, or at least I am, because I want my dad to be able to enjoy life before he retires. I don't want him to just like be slaving away until he retires one day and then has all this money. So
Yeah, because then it's like how long do you have to actually enjoy it? It's this fear. I don't know where that programming came from for that generation. I feel like there's just so many layers to it. Like my stepdad, he is very different, but he's very much of the school of thought too, of like, if you don't have a 9 to 5 job, or you don't got this, you're not working. And I'm
yeah.
like, well,
Like, what are you doing with
I
your life?
yeah, I'm like, well, I have found a way.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's just like a programming of fear, of lack, of scarcity. My mom has a really awful relationship with money, and I think a lot of that money anxiety I also inherited. So that quote that you said was like very
Mm.
hit close to home. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's really interesting the undoing the damage our parents have done unconsciously.
Yeah, I feel like we've taken on that as our job, as part of our purpose, to not only just to make our parents proud, because that's so cliche and obviously everybody wants that, but it's to make them feel like they did the best that they could and it was perfect. And um, I I recently moved in with my mom and my stepdad in January, and it's really weird because I don't want to say that I had a feeling that something like drastic, like a pandemic, was going to happen, but I had just some kinds of feelings when 2020 hit, that I needed to go home. And even though I haven't lived at home since I was literally 17 years old,
Mm.
something in me told me that I needed to go home and focus on my health. It was like it was just health download after health download. Like, this is it, 2020, you have to focus on your health. And I recorded so many podcasts about it too, which it freaks me out because I just kept hearing like my spirit guides screaming at me, like, if you don't fucking figure out your health now, then you're fucked. And
Wow.
I definitely resonate with what you just said. Like my most of my money financial wounds are from my mom, unfortunately, because she was forced to be a single mom very young, and we had to move around a lot, and she had to file bankruptcy a couple times, and as a little person, as like someone who's like 8, 9, 10 years old, um, I kind of knew what was happening, and I knew what was going on. And I think that that created a lot of like resentment and resistance towards her, because I was like disappointed. But I now that I look back, it's like, well, that shit wasn't easy, like just the fact that she actually did get through that, with what little money she did have during that period of time is like astonishing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird thing what happens when you realize that your parents are people.
Yeah.
That's, like, the craziest thing because like, I've had a tumultuous relationship with my mom too. I think that's something, you and I have discussed,
Yeah.
and it's funny the kinda cosmic mirror of the fact that, like, I've recently moved back into my mom's house too,
So
and I
funny.
had a very similar thing happen in October. When I was in LA, I got this crystal clear download, clear as day, "Put all your stuff in storage, save money, get rid of your apartment, like, take care of yourself."
When was this?
And I
October?
thought October.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and I
Wow.
thought it was to save up to, like, go to LA, and that's what I was kinda, like, planning for, and then October was crazy because I had, like, big falling out with my former business partner, and then, when I went to Rhythmia and had, like, that crazy
Oh,
journey with
yeah, I wanna hear
ayahuasca.
about that. Yeah.
It was just so
Yeah.
much, and then I was still kind of swimming in uncertainty, and then what had happened was, like, my landlord wanted to raise my rent, and I'm like, "I'm not paying this much money to live in Asbury Park, New Jersey." I begged my mom if I could come move home, and for the first time ever, she said
Hmm.
yes, so it's like it's really funny to kinda be working through a lot of that
Yeah.
karmic debt.
Wow, and I think that, like, the fact that you were already kind of thinking that you wanted to move, your spirit guides were kind of, like, nudging you and saying, "Hey, I think that you need to do this," and that final push was like, "Oh, and your rent's being raised," and that was, like, your spirit guide saying, "This is it, like, this is gonna make her realize," like, all these all these little signs and symbols, and it's like they have us on these strings, like we're puppets. And I do believe in free will, and I do believe that we are in charge of our destiny, and we do our thoughts create our reality. But at the same time, um like there's just a very like blurred line between that, I think. And like when I start to trace back the series of events, it's like, oh, okay, like I see what you were doing there, universe, or whatever you want to call it. Like very thought out, very like detailed and like personalized synchronicities so that you get the fucking picture of where you're supposed to go.
Totally. Yeah, it's like they're a hidden hand, right? Kind of silently guiding us, and they can't interfere with free will, but there's just these subtle movements that
Hmm.
um I always say it's like it'll just keep echoing until you actually listen.
Hmm.
And the echo just gets louder and louder. And then in my case, what happened was it was like rent raised, got my like expensive bike stolen, and like it was just everything. We're just like, all right, fuck it, I am listening.
Exactly.
And thank God, like, how lucky we are to be in the comfort of our parents' homes. Like,
During this
I don't
time,
know.
yeah.
I think I'd be that much more scared being alone in my apartment.
Of Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot. Like were my spirit guides, were our spirit guides kind of preparing us for this, because who knows how long we'll be in this kind of um safety net, of quarantine and all that. Hopefully not long, but I feel like we're very lucky to have this connection to like being able to like just recreate our life, like being able to just hop off of a timeline and being able to
create a brand new reality because um you know, you could have went two ways. You could have stayed there and you could have said, "Oh, you know, I'm just going to like couch surf or I'm going to like stay with a friend," because you felt like obligated to stay there because that's what society tells us. Like, well, what are you going to do? Move in with your parents and you're in your 30s? You know, you should be figuring it out or you should be, you know, like it's just like a different paradigm, and I feel like people are so scared to jump off of the reality and create a new one. And I'm like the complete opposite. Like I've moved so many fucking times in my life. I'm like a Sagittarius at heart. So like right in the middle of Sagittarius season is my birthday. And I I can trace back to every time that I've moved, something like dramatic has happened in my life. So, and I just am like I'm that person that'll just pick up, leave, fly across the country, drive across the country, restart, press the restart button, and like that's it.
Yeah. I really relate to that too. I mean, like I've moved a lot in New
Mhm.
Jersey. Um and I mean I briefly lived in North Carolina, but I don't know, like I life is precious and short, and like if you're having any inclination that this isn't the thing, I mean, I don't know. I have really opted out of the lie that we were sold of like get married, have kids, get the
Mm.
house, like get the 401k plan like 10 years ago, and I was like that is not what I want.
Yeah,
That does not sound very much fun to
that makes
me.
me like kind of nauseous. Like
Yeah.
even
Oh
like first of
god.
all, I can't even like date right now. Like just the thought of
No.
like I mean, literally, we can't date because we're in quarantine, which is even funnier
Yeah.
because I was like, I saw this other meme that was like, oh God, I really need to find it now. But basically, like recently, I've been kind of peeling off the layer and I'm like, all right, maybe I'll download Hinge. Maybe I'll try, you know, this online dating thing again. And I'll like re download Hinge and delete it like a million times. Um,
Yeah.
and it's oh, okay, here it is. This is the meme. It says, "Me, I think I'm ready to date again." And the universe says, "Oh yeah, releases worldwide virus preventing all human interaction." Me, well played. It's like, no, you're right. It's not time.
Just
Like,
kidding.
oh yeah, bitch, you still have some more shadow work to do. Um, yeah, it's just so funny,
Yeah.
and it's just one like metaphor and one it's just hilarious. Like you can't fucking make this shit up. Like I keep saying that, but um it's it's just like it makes me wonder cuz I mean what you were just saying about not being into the whole like marriage and I feel like a lot of us in our age bracket for like millennials aren't so much focused on getting married and having kids but finding someone who can like deal with us like I feel like that like the whole isolation and incapability of finding someone who you want to be with is because of all the baggage that we hold and all the trauma and all this the shit that we carry. It's like, oh no, I'm too much for someone. Like, and it's really blocking people because we have this like weird preconceived expectation that everybody should just put their best mask forward and like be perfect and then reel them in and then eventually they'll be okay with the flaws, but it's like that just kind of sets you up for failure.
Totally. Or like I don't know. I don't know if this happens to you too or has happened with dating is that it's a gift and a curse to be really sensitive and dialed in cuz I mean there's just been instances where like I've been out on a date and they're just like do people still play like games? Like
Yeah,
really?
like what?
Like, "Oh, okay, bro. I see right through what you're doing. No."
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, like I actually it's funny because like I'm not dating either, but I went out on a date for the first time in like a really long time last week. from somebody I met on Raya, which is like a really weird
Dude,
dating
you
app.
know, I've actually, that's the one that I haven't gotten on, and I really want to.
I can send you a friend
Yeah, please
pass.
do, because I'm on like some fucking wait list, and it's been like months, and I'm like, this is bullshit.
No, I got you. I'll give you the friend
Oh
pass.
shit, yes.
But the guy I went out with was lovely, like so fucking nice. But I'm like, am I just fucked up? Because he's like almost too nice that I'm not interested.
Yeah, no, that's literally, that's so normal. It's like, that's your typical, like, you want attention. Like, we want, as females, we want attention, but we don't want someone who is so into us that we feel like there's no, I don't want to say game, because we aren't really like trying to play a game, but it's like some catch and release, like cat and mouse, like it's so fucked up. It's like we crave a guy or a girl who doesn't give us their energy or as much energy as we would like, and then that makes us want them more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's so
Mm-hmm.
weird. But then on the other hand, yeah, it's just like the last 3 years, like I've had this on again, off again collaboration, I guess we could call it.
Collaboration.
with
I
my
love that.
I know, I'm like, that's good because it doesn't feel like a partnership. It's more of like a
Mm-hmm.
collaboration. And he's amazing, and my best friend, but he's like a fucking like praying mantis cat, like always like has to I don't know, he's like a person of his own where he's so nice but also like needs space, and I think we both understand that of each other, which is also kind of like a weird blessing. But I don't know, I feel like the universe is giving everybody a timeout, and it's good to kind of, I don't want to say be selfish is the word, but it's good to take a lot of self-care right now.
Like take inventory and like really take notes of like what relationships and what friendships are helping you thrive, because
Yeah.
in isolation you're going to realize, oh, like I really care about this person, I'm going to reach out to them. And like I feel like everybody in society who maybe doesn't have that, quote unquote perfect job and relationship and house and family, we've kind of been feeling isolated and alone, for a while now, even if you're not in the spiritual realm at all. Like there's studies proven that like ages, what is it, Gen X, is that after millennials, the like
I think so.
18 to like 25, they are the most depressed and lonely generation out of all of the generations, and have the most like, they are with people all the time, they're in school. Like if I think
Wow.
back to like my high school and art school and college, I was around people all the time. I was a fucking extrovert to the max. I was like totally not like I am right now. And I was always living with people. I was always hanging out with my friends. I was always going to the beach. I was always doing something. Like we were always up to like no good. It was like a big party all the time. And it's so much easier to meet people when you're in college or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is really, spiritual solitude is part of the awakening process, and it's part of connecting with your shadow self and the parts of yourself that aren't working, because a lot of who we are is who we think we should be for the people around us.
This episode is brought to you by Thought Cloud CBD, which is one of the purest CBD companies I'm affiliated with. They are Reiki infused, vegan, sustainable, and pure, lab tested, world renowned CBD, and they have a variety of products from tinctures to topicals and even face masks and facial cleansers that are infused with CBD in them. I've actually been using Thought Cloud CBD products for almost 2 years now, and I love their tinctures so much. It was one of the first companies that I really got deep into the tincture form of healing, and their tinctures are really nice and light. They have coconut oil in them. They don't have all these crazy flavors with additives and, different types of chemicals that you don't want to be in your CBD. You just want exactly what you're getting. And the reason why you take CBD is to heal. So you don't want any of those junky fillers in there. And CBD is not meant to have that stuff in it. So Thought Cloud is all about healing, and I recommend using their tinctures for anxiety, depression, inflammation, gut health, autoimmune flare-ups. And I also use their CBD facial cleanser bar soap, the CBD mud mask that you guys always see me posting about in my stories. So if you'd like to check out Thought Cloud, you can follow them on Instagram. Just type in Thought Cloud, or you can purchase anything off their website, thoughtcloud.net, and you can use discount code GypsyLoveFlow for a discount. And if they're ever having a sale, you can also use my discount code GypsyLoveFlow, and that will give you extra money off, even if it's like a 70% crazy sale that they have. Sometimes they have sales during the season. So go ahead, check them out, thoughtcloud.net. Use code GypsyLoveFlow for a discount at checkout.
Completely. It's so true. I mean, the thing is, it's good to have that like introspection. Like, there's a reason why the Hermit is such an important part of the major arcana. But like, that's such a sad thing to think about, the statistics of how many of these like younger kids are lonely. Because it's like, I don't know. Do you follow Jillian Richardson? Do you know her
No.
work? She's lovely. She was a speaker at the last Whitma we did, the final one, and she had said she has this company called the Joy List, where she curates lists of events and happenings in New York for lonely people to get together and actually like find community. And she had shared a statistic that loneliness has the same effect on your health as if you smoked like something like 3 packs of cigarettes a
Yeah,
day.
that's fucking terrifying. Like, because if
Right?
that's the case, I don't want to know how fucked up my lungs are, or how fucked up my body is. Because when I was living in Philly, I was just like, I was teaching yoga and I was around people, which was great. But I was also the most lonely and isolated I've ever been, because it was so impossible for me to meet people. I moved there under some really gnarly circumstances. Like, when I was living in Miami, I got scammed by a realtor. And if you know how we were talking about earlier, like when the universe kind of like pushes you into a new reality, I was
Yeah.
literally pushed into a new reality because this realtor scammed us, and forced me to put all my shit in storage, forced me to give my cat to my mom. And then I, on a whim, just flew up to Philly to stay with a friend who ended up being a drug addict, drug dealer, narcissist, who really like put me in a weird headspace. And then after that whole thing happened, I was on my own in Philly, um, getting sober-ish and living this sober-ish lifestyle. And um, meeting friends in that headspace is so challenging. I don't care what city you're in, because alcohol is such a normal social lubricant at this point. And once I started getting clean and my mental space was clear, that's when the shadow work really begins. And that's when you start realizing, oh, like this is why I am the way that I am, because of this and because of that. And that happened when I was a child, and this happened when I was 18, and whatever. And it's like the layers of the onion just keep peeling off and peeling off. And it's like, when you have like an open wound, and even when you put a band-aid on it, you can feel that like that harsh kind of like tender skin. That's what it feels like all the time, because you're just constantly having these realizations, like kind of like you're on like a psychedelic. But when your mind is starting to get clean from drugs and from alcohol or from toxic relationships or like toxic sexual relationships, you start to like awaken to how much shit you've actually been through.
Yeah. And that's so fucking hard to be able to like sit in that wound and come out of it. And like, I don't know how your process has been for it, but I really resonate. And that's such a powerful fucking metaphor for it. But I think the hardest thing is like forgiving yourself for the choices, because man, I've been so fucking hard on myself for all of that stuff. So it's like to look at it, to feel it, and then to somehow come out on the other end of it still being able to like forgive and love yourself. That's really fucking hard.
Yeah, that's the hardest part is not like sitting in the shit of like guilt and labeling ourselves as trauma victims or trauma survivors or a drug addict. Like I feel like that could be very limiting as well, like just identifying with the trauma that I've been through wasn't really doing me any
Yeah.
good, because I was just harping on it and I was ruminating on it and I was so obsessed with why did this happen to me, and I fucking hate him, or I can't believe that happened, I can't believe this situation happened. And then once you just really start to peel the layers, you just get so mushy and you get so like um, you just can't think about it anymore, and you're just like, well, I'm just here, I'm one big blob of whatever the fuck I am, and I just have to surrender and look at it as, well, what was the universe doing? Like you know like we are saying, how it seems like a perfect little like script that the universe has. um
Yeah.
what's behind the script that the universe is making for us? And it fucking sucks when we're faced with abuse and partners that don't serve us, or friends that are emotionally abusive, or drugs, or whatever it is. um but it's all with meaning, like it all has a meaning to it.
Completely. I mean, that's the thing. That's the paradox, right? If it on a spiritual path, trying to look at things from a non-dual way and realizing that that's all part of God too. The abusive situation, the cocaine, the whatever it is, whatever the toxic behavior, the toxic thing, that's part of another bigger thing that I think sometimes the greatest revelations are met after tragedy. And it's an unfortunate thing, but if you can find the gold in the heaviness, that's like, the alchemical metaphor that is so
Mm-hmm.
powerful. But there's something really I don't know how to word this. So a friend of mine who is just like a amazing woman. She does a lot of activism and has a yoga studio and is just like a very mindful person. And I don't even know how it came up, but somebody had said something and the way they phrased it was that they were talking about homeless people. And she corrected them and she was like, "No, you can never say that. That is like a really fucked up way to kind of generalize a human being." She's like, the way that you should kind of look at it is this is a person that's experiencing
Mm.
homelessness. And looking at that as a lens to like reflect on like trauma, abuse, addiction. It's like to label, well, I'm a trauma survivor and I'm an addict and I'm this. And it's like, no, you're Gab. And these are your experiences and the experiences that you've walked through to become who you are.
Yeah.
Like for me, for so long after I ended my relationship with my one ex, I just clung to like, well, he hit me and he cheated on me and he abused me and he almost ruined my life and he was abusive and this and that. And you know what I was doing is that I was just like completely disempowering myself and inflating this monster. And you know what I did the other day, which is like just I was crazy to do, but I sent him an
Mm-hmm.
email And I thanked him for all the actual good things he brought into my life.
Wow.
And because we have nothing but time right now with the quarantine, I actually took a Skype call with him, and I hadn't seen his face in like years. And when I saw him, I completely melted because I just felt compassion, because I'm like, this is not a
Mhm.
malicious person. This is not a person that means to hurt people. Person is also an addict, and this person is like a dog that doesn't know what he's
Right.
doing. And I was reduced to just like, wow, I have compassion for you. I have compassion for you, and the story can
Oh
change
my
now.
god. Yeah, that
Sorry, that was a
no,
long
like
rant.
that I don't think I could do that with with my exes. Just gonna say that right there. But the fact that
Yeah.
you can see past whether it's physical, emotional abuse, because I feel like when we are in these relationships with whatever you want to call it, soulmate, twin flame, I don't think that that's necessarily a positive thing. Like, I know people are like, oh, let me find my
Yeah.
soulmate or my twin flame, but I feel like that is just a metaphor of a mirror. And like, when two people are in a relationship that maybe it's not the right time, one person is going to take out all of their anger and all of their pain and all of their trauma on the other person because they know that there's no other person in their life that they can get away with doing that with. Um, like, that's your typical narcissist relationship, is that they feel like they can just get away with treating you like shit because you don't have um, anything else, but because your self-worth is low. But what you're saying is that you got out of that relationship, and now that time has healed it and you've obviously raised your self-worth, you're totally capable of seeing that person in a new light in a compassionate way. So it really does start with like raising our own self worthiness and our vibe with that.
Completely. And I think there's a reason why those cliches are cliches too, about like holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick, or like holding on to anger is like holding on a hot coal and expecting the other person to burn. It's
Hmm.
definitely one of those things. And it's almost like a biblical parable to think about, like forgiving this one ex, because he was very different than, like, I went from one abusive relationship to another abusive relationship, and both forms of abuse were very different. But there's something in that, like, fucking forgive them for no they know not what they do, or like love thy neighbor stuff, like
Yeah.
it's like, but it took like psychedelics for me to be like, yo, the Bible really there's some stuff in there that's very
And
powerful.
then like also like what is it with New Jersey guys? Why are they such pieces of shit?
Oh
Like
god, they're
like
awful.
I don't want to make a whole blanket statement, but like I'm from New Jersey originally, and I went to I lived there until I was 18, and two of my more serious relationships, I guess you could call it, were with people, two guys from New Jersey, and they both ended up being heroin addict, narcissist, like manipulative. And it's just like, okay, what does that say about me? You know what I mean? Like it's just been all these layers that have been peeling back, and it goes back to us holding on to our parents' trauma and like the cycles and the patterns that our parents like unwillingly put onto us, because low self-worth is not um you're not born with that. It's learned, and it's like it's
Yeah.
absorbed through the energy before you can even speak, before you can even go to school. When your age is like 3, 4, 5, you've been absorbing your parents' energy, and you pretty much get the gist of what's going on without being able to like talk with them. Or um, something really crazy happened recently, which was a huge mind uh, cracking open, if you will. Um, and I won't share too much of it because it is my mom's business. But Recently, we were in the car in a Walmart parking lot, out of all places, and she shared with me that she was sexually assaulted when she was like 14 years old. And
Wow.
in that moment, I heard my spirit guide saying, see, it's not just you. It's not your fault. It's not you. It's not your fault. You didn't ask for this kind of stuff. It was in your DNA. And I just kept hearing that. It was in your DNA. It was in your
Wow.
DNA. Um, and this conversation came out of fucking nowhere. I was like, wow, just like all the bells are ringing, all the flashing lights, and it all starts to make sense once you get these bits and pockets of information. um, we are products of our parents, and I'm not saying that our parents are to blame for everything, but a lot of what we carry is like, well, why did I keep getting the wrong guy? Why did I keep getting abused, this and that? Why did I have drug and alcohol problems? Why did I have an eating disorder? Well, it makes perfect sense, you know.
Completely. Have you looked into
Yeah,
epigenetics at all?
yeah,
Oh my God, that's what like
it's
blows
fucking
my mind
crazy.
too. It's like we're literally like just fucking carrying out these karmic reflections that are encoded in our
Yeah,
DNA. It's insane.
I just like, yeah, that was just like a huge epiphany, and I was like, oh shit. It's almost like spirit or whatever, your spirit guides, God, just like looked me in the eye and was like, see, this is why we told you to come live with your parents, because you needed to hear this. You needed to do the shadow work. And that wasn't going to happen if I was living on my own, hating my life, hustling and just getting by. And, um, like,
Yeah. But think about what a gift for your
mhm.
mom too. Like for her, it's probably really nice to have you.
I think
Like
so. Yeah.
I don't know if she'd be the person to admit it or, I don't know your mom, I'm assuming, but I'm just imagining just to have the time to heal. Like as you heal yourself, you heal her,
Yeah. That's crazy
you
that you're
know.
saying that, because I like had that download before I even moved here, and I was like questioning why the fuck I kept receiving this message to move back here. And as much as I was resisting it, I was like, "Oh, well maybe in order for me to heal my autoimmune disorder and my depression and just all the things that I'm really really focused on leaving behind, maybe this is like the missing puzzle piece. And in order for me to really heal physically and emotionally, I need to heal the relationship in my life that is hands down the most intense relationship anyone will have, is with their parents."
Yeah, 100%. That's I think I don't know if we had talked about this too, and we've had like our
Yeah.
many little chats. But I think another reason why I have been so like fuck dating is because like I'm just not really ready for another lesson.
Totally. Yo, I hear that loud and clear. I'm just like, no, let's keep.
Yeah. Like, all right, I see how the one was like my dad. I see how the one was like my mom. I got to work on who I am right now so that I can like really refine and polish and meet the right
Right.
mirror.
And like, and at the same time, it's like we can get lost in that too. We can get lost in the I'm just going to focus on myself, um and then kind of put up this semi fear-ish wall that's saying, "Oh no, I'm not ready to meet anybody because of this." But then is that blocking us? I don't know. Like I truly do sometimes desire someone to cuddle with or someone to just watch a movie with. And then I start talking myself out of it, and I'm like, "Oh, but no, they would think you're crazy for this, and they would eventually find out that you do this." And it's like fuck, man, like let me live.
I go through the same thing, but then in my head, I'm like, oh, do I really want this? Because I get to choose the movie. I don't want anybody telling me what movie I'm supposed to watch.
Yeah, that too. It's like I don't fucking need anybody telling me what to do. I've been single for how long?
Yeah. I'm such a only child in so many ways. I I'm not like a typical only child. Like I'm not selfish, but it's just like when it comes to certain things, it's like I'm such a movie snob and like it needs to be my choice. Or I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be a very annoying person
Uh,
for somebody, I'm
wait,
sure.
what's your sign? Okay, yeah,
I'm an
that's right.
Aries.
So you are definitely intense and you know what you want. I mean, it's not
Yes.
compromisable, which is kind of interesting that that you were a victim in manipulative relationship because Aries seems to be so tough, but also very emotional too. So I can
Yeah.
see that we're fire. So
Well, the one that it was funny because like the one that was physically abusive was actually less harmful than the one that was mentally abusive, and the one that was mentally
mm,
abusive was an Aries. So that was hard. It was just like two rams butting heads, and then the Capricorn was the one that was just you know, struggled with addiction and had had his issues with
uh,
that. But
like good old
I
Capricorn.
don't
Yeah,
know. I mean, the thing,
I've had some fuckery with Capricorns too. And it's nothing like against certain signs. I think it's just where we're at in our lives too is what we like reflect and bring in. And but it is kind of daunting sometimes for me to sit back and say, okay, well, I'm doing all this work. Like we're all doing this work, this shadow work, and raising our self worth and focusing on ourselves to better ourselves. But how do you integrate that into society, where society you're not so sure where this person's coming from? And I personally am not going to go to the bar and meet someone. That sounds like hell for me. I'd rather just be single forever. I get really anxious now when I go to bars because I feel like bars are kind of connected to some of the trauma that I've been through in my life. So it's kind of like it's like a double-edged sword. It's like, okay, cool, you did all this shadow work and this trauma work and you can't go to bars now either. It's like, fuck.
yes, like fuck. Yeah, but like that, where do you meet people? I
Raya.
mean, that's the thing that I yeah, Raya, I guess. Because the other ones I've just download and delete too, like Hinge and whatever. Like I've just kept Raya for the novelty of it, and like the few people I've matched with, it's like, oh,
Right.
this is interesting,
And
and they've all
with
been
Raya,
nice,
like
but
so it shows you people from all over though, doesn't it? So is that I mean,
yeah.
that is good for people who travel. I mean, have you gone on a lot of dates when you're traveling from that?
I mean, I haven't been going on
Mhm,
dates like at all, but I've chatted with a bunch of people. But one of the things I mean, I'm just so fucking naive too, which is another thing I have to work through is like, you can be on it for dating and you can be on it for work. And if you're on it for dating, there's an option that you click where it says, Jen is
mhm.
just here for friends. And I didn't even know that. That's just kind of like the automatic default. So one of the guys I was chatting with who's lovely and like super nice has like a fucking hologram
What?
company. I'm like, okay. But he's
Uh,
married and he's like, "Oh, I'm just friends." And I'm like, "Well, does your wife know that?" And I'm like, I guess a lot of people go on there for just friends and they're
wait,
married." I'm
that's
like, "Oh,
really
that's gross. I don't
interesting
like that."
because today I was listening to this podcast. You know Dax Shepard's podcast, Armchair Expert? So,
Yes.
his like business partner Monica Padman.
I don't know. I don't know like
So,
too much. I just know
yeah,
Dax
so
and I know he has a
she kind
podcast.
of is like his partner or whatever. It's weird. They like him and Kristen Bell and Monica Padman are kind of like a I don't want to say they're poly because I don't think they have sex, but they're like very close. Like they're like a package deal.
Yeah.
Well, Monica, their like, partner or whatever has a new podcast and she's basically getting ripped to shreds by like therapist and her gay best friend is on it and they talk about all the fuckery that goes on with dating and trauma and So one of them is a sex addict, this gay guy named Jess, and then Monica is kind of like me, like she's unable to date, she's like closed off, she like doesn't have like a connection to sexuality, she's like asexual, you know. So like they're like completely opposites, but the therapist that they had on today was basically saying that the majority of people nowadays, they they don't start dating someone from that perspective. They gradually move into a romantic relationship or partnership with someone who was a friend before, because they feel comfortable. And she
That
was like,
makes so
yeah,
much sense.
they feel safe, they feel comfortable, they feel easy, because they already know you. So it's like this pressure to like start dating and like go into the date with like a romantic vibe and like energy is kind of like weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like, to me it's like a turn off to be like, ew, like I don't know, the whole like dating thing. Like I don't know. It's just like a
It just
weird
feels
thing.
very forced, and, like, I totally relate with
Yeah. Like to be
yeah, like, and
interviewed. I
I'd
don't
much
know.
rather, like, be on a dating app and, like, go in there and say, "Oh, I'm here for friends," and then meet up with someone with that intention, right? With the intention of just being friends, like, no pressure, and then that gradually becoming something romantic. That seems way more safe than just going into it like, "Oh, I guess we should talk about this because we're on a date," or, like
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I think that, like, I don't know, when you actually can, like, be friends with somebody, and if that's how it, like, starts, that offers such a
mhm.
good foundation, as opposed to, like, "Oh, well, what turns you on?" and, like,
Yeah.
"What are you looking for?"
Oh
and
my
what are you like,
god.
all that conversation is so, like, awful.
Have you had, like, very many friend with benefits, situations? Because that can go pretty dark too.
You know, honestly, like, my collaborator over the last 3 years has been
Mhm.
my friend with benefits, and I'm spoiled with him because he's my best friend, and we have such a creative connection, and, like, literally, Gab, like, we have nights where we'll just talk, and all of a sudden it's, like, 1 a.m., and I'm like, "What the fuck? We were just talking this whole entire time?" So he hits every level, and, like, we have, like, an amazing connection, like, in bed, but the issue is that, like, he's, like, my complete opposite, and he's, like, this rainbow nihilist that thinks, like, nothing matters and, like, lives in his mom's house and, like, never wants to, like, I don't know, we're just so different. So that's the thing where it's like, man, where we meet is so fucking amazing and profound, but where we don't meet is so fucking detrimental that, like, the reason why it never, like, has been able to be successful, I think, is because, like, I love him so much, I don't
Yeah,
wanna change him, and I think anytime those feelings of, like, "Oh, well, maybe we can make it work," is, like, no, the rational me is like, "No.
right,
This is
and
okay
it's
to be
also
my best
scary
friend."
to, like, feel like you're putting that friendship on ice or something. Like, I've been in that situation where I
Yeah.
had a best friend in art school, and we we went to concerts together, and he really cared about me. Like, it was just a very um genuine friendship. And then once sex got involved, shit got really weird, and we all had the same friend group, and it turned into
Oh.
um like him kind of like ignoring me when we would go out with our friends, right? Like drinking at the bars and whatever. And then when we would go back to his place, like he would be all over me. And it was like very like it was just a mind fuck, you know?
Mm.
Um
Yeah.
and but where did you meet your collaborator? Like you've known him for a while?
Well, actually, I met him
Oh,
through
okay, that
my
works.
ex. So, when, I had known my ex since, like, 2009 when I used to have a t-shirt line with another ex-boyfriend. We had a t-shirt line where, like, we'd make designs and he would silk screen them, and then I would sell them at these little events called Shore Alternative. So it'd be like these weird, like, Andy Warhol factory, like, cool bands and like artists and like whatever, and it was sponsored by this one radio station. This is like culture alternative nights. So I met him back then, and I always thought he was like a little nuts. I was like, what is this guy on?
Like that was your first like
Should have been my first clue. But he's like charming. But so then you flash forward to summer of 2013. I got back from doing ayahuasca with Daniel Pinchbeck in Costa Rica, and then somebody from that Chore Alternative reached out to me because they were talking about doing like an AM radio station. And I was like, oh, cool. And they're like, yeah, we'd love to have you get involved. I took a meeting, ran into what then became my boyfriend, which was the person back in 2009. And I had also written like a psychedelic kids book. Like, I know that sounds so crazy, but it was basically like this like kids book on unity consciousness. And I needed an illustrator. And he's like, oh, you need to meet Richie. So, I mean, Richie and I talk openly, so he won't even listen to this,
You're
but
safe.
he knows we share the story. I'm safe. So he introduced me to him, and Richie illustrated my kid's book, and I think he found it very annoying because he does not like the new age stuff, although he is a seeker. So we're having like arguments about like what baby Jesus's nose should look like, and like how to make Gandhi look like a Muppet
Like just
baby.
out of this world shit. Which I feel like we all need.
Yeah, and then totally. And him and I bonded over X-Files, and he became like my best friend, and also eventually wound up becoming like my big support system when like I found out that my ex was cheating on me, and like then started like fucking up, you know. So when I broke up with my ex, he and I started hanging out more, and then it was just like one of those things. You're just like, wow, like you're amazing, and in theory this should work. And yeah, but it's a different situation. I think it would be like it would be a little more challenging if it wasn't like that we had 3 years of friendship before 3 years of this dance we've been doing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think what gets hard is that like him and I have an agreement that if, you know, I or he meets somebody that we have feelings for, that like we won't talk about it until it feels necessary to like bring up, in case like they're going to be around like our friends or whatever, and like we'll just be adults about it. But I also think that that's going to be hard, like when I do have a serious relationship, if I ever have a serious
Yeah.
relationship again,
You will.
like
we're getting there. We're getting there. It's gonna happen.
we're getting there, yeah.
But also like I've thought about this a lot is like it seemed like when I was in art school or just younger, like, 18 to like 25, it's so much easier to like fall for someone. It's and like that like
Yeah.
romantic like headspace is like so much easier to tap into because you're like you're not tainted by fucking adultery, I guess. Like and like all the
Yeah.
and all I guess all the trauma like, from relationships, which at 24 I was already I was already traumatized. But it's just funny to think back
Yeah.
to my first few relationships and how romantic they were and how when you're younger it's like you're so naive and it's so cool and it's like you're so into one another and it's almost like you just have more game and more steez and like guys like young guys, they don't know, they haven't been through a lot of relationships yet, so they're giving it their all. And like the more um, relationships you go through, and then you're just tallying them up on your wall, you're like, oh fuck, like this next one, gotta prepare. Like, it just kind of makes you
Yeah.
feel tainted and like ready for war or ready to see their dark side or ready to see their psycho side, and everybody just got this like guard put up like, oh, like they gotta be like something's gotta be seriously wrong with them, or it's like a coping mechanism to protect ourselves. And I think that's really bitten me in the ass because it's hard to like disconnect from identifying my relationship life to all those toxic ones. Like even though I'm raising my self-worth, it's hard to take off that, or to put on the blindfold that was taken off. It's like, oh, I know how guys are, and it kind of it goes both ways. I'm sure men look at women like, oh yeah, she's probably a psycho, or you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Well, it's hard. It's hard not to be jaded. Like it's so important to have those experiences because they help us to have like better boundaries, but I don't know, it's like this weird homesickness for that
yes,
naivete sometimes because like that, "Oh my god, I love you and you're
right.
my soulmate," and that like, did you watch that fucking
No, but
show
I've
Love
heard
Is
about it. Is
Blind?
it good?
Oh my god, I've needed to binge watch junk just because I'm such a researcher and, like, I spend so much the majority of my
Yeah.
day, like, reading heavy shit. So, like, you know what? I'm just gonna watch this. And it's absurd. I mean, like, it's ridiculous, but also, like, I'm hearing these people talking about, like, "I just know this
Oh
is who
my
I'm meant to
god.
marry, and this is my soulmate, and this, that," and I'm like, "Shut up."
Yeah, like,
Like, I'm like, "I don't wanna be this person yelling at the TV and being like,
what?
'You're
Yeah, like when I
stupid.'"
saw the cover of it on Netflix, it kind of reminded me of like one of those MTV like early 2000s dating shows, and I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know about this. Um,
Totally.
but like, yeah,
Totally.
dude, what you just said, like, you miss that, like, that naive, you know, I love you, and so like intimate. And I feel like once you get older, it's like, well, I have my life, and I have my job, and I have my fur animals, and I have this, and I have that. And I feel like when we're in our vibration, when we're kind of like falling in love with ourselves again, as corny as that fucking sounds, which is, but it's totally necessary, because I hated myself for so many years, like literally hated myself. um like, I'm
Yeah.
starting to really like who I am, and I'm like, "Oh, dude, you're cool," you know? Like, I don't know, like,
Mhm.
you're cool,
Yeah.
you're into cool stuff, and, you have a podcast, and, like, you're doing cool stuff, like, give yourself a fucking break. But then it's hard to, like, have somebody, like, have somebody come in and then let them show you. It's like, well, I don't want anybody to tell me if I'm cool or not. Like, I'm deciding that I'm
Yeah.
cool. And um I guess that's another coping mechanism too. But like, it's hard just getting older and allowing someone into your life. Like, it's just harder because we're just we're smarter now, and we're not just going to let our guard down for just anyone, especially when you're raising your vibration. And I was just listening to another podcast today, and she was saying it's harder to date when you are raising your vibration, because it's easier for you to see their energy, and if it's low vibe energy, then it's just a no. And it's like you don't have even an ounce of
Yeah.
energy to even to see, which can be a blessing or a curse. um, because they could be really cool, but if you're
Totally.
not getting any sense of wanting to like try with them, then it's just a no.
Yeah. And it's like I don't know. I mean, I think we can both agree on the fact that like the idea of settling for just like, well, that's just
No,
like not
that's
even an
that's what our
option.
parents did.
Yeah. And it's just like that it just can't.
Can't do
It
it.
can't. No. But I don't know, circling back to the Love is Blind thing too, I will say, because I think there's a powerful metaphor in this too, because I was just like poo-pooing this stupid show that I
Yes.
watched every episode of. But there's one couple in particular that I cried like just I'm not giving anything away, but they actually made me feel a sense of hope and like a little bit of rekindling of that naivete
Mhm.
that has been so lost because I was like, wow, these are two really beautiful people and they actually did find true love in the most bizarre
Bizarre.
circumstance. So there's
Um,
hope for
you don't know
anybody.
what episode is it?
Oh, it's the whole thing.
Oh,
I
okay.
I can't give it away.
All right. I guess I'll give it a
Yeah.
shot. I guess I have nothing else to do than
Yeah.
binge watch, Netflix since we're quarantined.
Hey,
Right.
we got nothing but time for the
Yeah. I've just been
foreseeable
working out a
weeks.
lot and I don't know, I canceled my gym membership and I was like, fuck yeah, I'm not fucking paying them money anymore. I can work out outside. And it's like, I feel like people are also going to realize, oh shit, look at all these things that I pay for monthly that I don't really need.
Yeah. Like how unimportant that is. It's just like you can go be outside in nature, go
Mhm.
for a walk. Like, oh my
And
God.
that's like what Gary Vee is like always fucking talking about. He's like, what, like, if you're broke, then what are you spending your money on? Like, you're spending your money on shit that you think you need to, that people think that you need. It's just like, that's his like whole steez right now. And it's like, it is so true. Like, do you really need that gym membership? Do you really need that nice ass car that you drive to work and then you bring it home and like that's it?
No. Oh my God. Yeah, that to me, like what some people are spending money, like I mean, I'm not trying to talk shit on people's choices at all, but like when you think about like God, instead of having like an $800 a month car
Jesus,
payment,
yeah.
like for what? Like, like I
That's the
just can't.
people who have so much money they don't
But
know what to do with it. And I feel like this whole thing that's happening, to like kind of bring it full circle, is going to make people look at their lives um, in all aspects, because like the people who have a ton of money, I, some of them have a lot of money, but they're also kind of just getting by because they have so much money and they have so much. Like they have all these cars, this lavish lifestyle, multiple homes, and it's like, well, they don't have too much cushion, um, so it's gonna affect them too.
yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't know. The fact that however long this lasts, whatever will come of it, wherever it goes, like this is an historical moment in our lifetime. And I just think on the other side of this, whatever it is going to definitely be
Yeah,
different.
it's trippy.
That's for sure. And yeah, I can't even imagine what's closer to the election. I'm not trying to like future trip too much, but it's just like epic times we're
Epic
in, Gab.
and scary.
Yeah. But it's like, I don't know, man. When I was in Costa Rica with my friend Tarka back in December, when I had that like heinous trip and like demonic possession or whatever, her and I both talked about like looking at it as like surfing through chaos, and that sometimes like the right way is the wrong way, and like what's up is sometimes down, what's down is sometimes up. Like you just got to keep surfing. And we actually like took surfing lessons when we were out there, and I just kept thinking about how like even that feeling of like uncertainty, like if you can even like hold balance as you're on this thing. I mean, for me, I'm not like a surfer, so it's like
Hmm.
totally like a
That seems
petrifying
nice.
thing. But there is like satisfaction when you reach the shore. So I think that like just to look at it that like we're all just surfing through chaos right now. So not to be afraid, but to kind of take that anxiety feeling and remember that there's something on the
Yeah,
other side of
I
this.
feel like we should probably make an entire episode about ayahuasca or just healing in general, and like, because I've had a near death experience on psychedelics, not ayahuasca, and I've loved to like pick your brain
Wow.
about that. And I know that I mentioned to you, Colin, I like reached out to him because I know that him and Michael Phillip are so, they are, I don't want to say like enthusiasts because that would be weird to say that, but they they explain the ayahuasca experience very like wholesome way. And so I reached out to him and
Yeah.
I was like, yo dude, I'm like very scared to do ayahuasca because I had a near death experience on acid. And we figured out that it was because I was also on benzos at the time, and he made me feel a lot better about it. And like the more I like read your posts and um just like listen to people talking about it, like I definitely have been feeling called to do it, and I would love to like really have like a deep dive episode with you about that, because um you just seem like you've had so like a wide variety of experiences, and that last one seemed to like shake you up a bit.
Yeah, that one was wild, and I would love that. I feel like we could have like plenty of gab
That'd
sessions,
be so
like
dope.
literally.
And
Yeah, I'm
also,
totally down. So now that my
yeah, thank
technology is
God.
working, and I mean, fuck, an hour
I
and 20
know.
minutes just flew
And
by.
also
That's
though,
insane.
the Rhythmia dating app, we can talk about that on the next episode too,
Yeah,
which I
perfect.
can't wait
I
to
love
be
it.
part of that. Yeah,
Yeah, did
yeah.
you guys
So
schedule
I
the
emailed them back, and then this stuff kind of happened with the quarantine stuff. But we are scheduling an
Okay.
interview with JJ, his name. Yeah, so that'll happen, and I'm
Yes.
super stoked because that seems like it would be such a like more safe vibe of dating app. Like, yeah,
Yeah, definitely. I think it's funny because I think this everything we covered on this episode is a really good layup to talk about like more mindful dating and ayahuasca and all those
yeah,
kind
I
of
love
things
that.
next time around. But yeah, it's definitely a good platform that they're building, and I'm really happy to kind of be connected to that field because it's necessary, like, to just not just be, like, swiping or, like, shopping for your match. You can actually be like, "Oh, does psilocybin and
Right?
transcendental
Like,
meditation
okay.
check?"
Right, 'cause it's like, dude, how are we supposed to, like, find awakened on the same level people? Like, we can't just, like, go and dive into this kind of conversation with a normie. They're gonna think that we're absolutely insane and we need to be, like, institutionalized.
Completely. But there's also, like, nuance to it because it's like, I wanna date somebody that's, like, into these things, but I don't really wanna date the guy in the
Same,
genie pants, like,
literally.
I'm not into that.
We need that balance. Like, if you're out there, I don't know, if
Yeah.
you're out there and you're listening, you need to be, like, the most balanced kind of masculine with, like, tattoos, and, like, you need to be more masculine than me, because if I have more tattoos than you, I'm gonna feel like the man, and I don't like that feeling.
Yeah, like, where like okay, before, like, we gotta, like, wrap it, I'm curious, so, like, if you were to, like, build, like, the avatar of who this person is, like so, like, my illustrator of Amenti, Natalie, is, like she's, like, my best friend, and we had this discussion, a few months ago. We were in
Mhm.
Boston with another friend of ours, and we were, like, talking about, like, building the perfect guy, and, like, we kept using soup as the metaphor, like, that goes
Oh,
in the soup,
definitely.
that's the
I've been thinking about
bait.
this a lot, manifesting and writing out, and like, I'd be interested in hearing yours too, but mine, basically is I need a guy that looks like a piece of shit on the outside, but really isn't on the inside. like 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 Post Malone. Like, he's like a sweetheart deep down. Like, if you've seen him in like interviews or like whatever, he's like a fucking teddy bear, but he looks like a convict. I love that shit. I'm your girl for that, because I need to be balanced out, because I have my yoga and I have my woo woo shit, and I need a guy who'll do yoga and he's active and whatever, and he makes money and he's successful, but he can't be like too like wooey, because then I'm just gonna be like, oh my god, get the fuck away from me. Like like we need I need I need somebody to balance me out.
Amen to that.
What about you?
Well, I used to say, like, which is, like, very funny, so forever I've said, like, I
Oh my
wanna marry
god.
Jason Segel, and, like, he's, like the guy. And it's so funny because like I've been saying this since like 2009, and my mom used to be a flight attendant, and she had him on one of her fucking flights one day, and she literally like, my daughter said that she wants to marry you, and I'm like, oh my god, get the fuck out of here. Are you kidding me? So she made him sign a picture of me and my mom.
Yo, your mom has balls.
She does. But like, funny enough, his sister Allie Siegel is fucking hilarious. She has a podcast called Web Crawlers, and we follow each other on Instagram. She's awesome because she's like, I feel like she's just, I want to be friends with her anyway. But Jason Segel was like the archetype of guy, like this tall, muppety kind of goofer that like seems mindful and kind. But like, I need somebody with an edge too. I need somebody that's like got a good dose of snark. I mean, I'm fucking from New Jersey, so like,
I
mean, we're from New Jersey, so
they need to put us in check, but also like they need to listen.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Not be so like so soft.
We can't deal with that soft.
Like
that soft shit.
No.
We're fire.
No. I like completely. I just need. I remember like one of the first festivals I ever had a speaking engagement with. I like went with my ex-boyfriend, and like it was just such a trip and so weird. And like at one point we were just like walking around the festival, and like there was nothing to do but drum circles, and like we were able to laugh about the fact that it was
like that's our only option.
Drum circle.
Yeah, exactly.
The only option is the drum circle.
Is literally like up at the top of the page.
1,000%. Like if you aren't funny, then you're not for me. But that's the building of our soup.
I gotta do some like witchy spells over here too. I have like red candles, and I've been learning a lot about witch magic, and just like it really getting into that kind of like practice and rituals. So we'll see. Let's see what I can whip up during this quarantine. What kind of spells and shit we can do.
Yeah, oh my Conjuring God, during the quarantine. I like it.
Yeah.
Oh man, this has been awesome.
You, dude. We're gonna do this again for sure.
I love you. Yeah, amen.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Wow. I hope that you guys enjoyed that episode as much as I did. Talking to Jennifer Sodini was definitely an expansive and just super down-to-earth, easy vibe conversation. I love talking about relationships and drugs and all this shit, and everybody can resonate in one way or another, and it's really just so fun to be able to sit down with someone who you don't know that well, but you can connect with. And right now, more than ever, in this quarantine situation that we're in, is the perfect opportunity to text that friend you haven't talked to in a while, or reach out to someone who you feel a connection with, maybe on Instagram, or maybe you want to reestablish a relationship with someone who you miss, or you want to check in on someone. Now's the time. Connection doesn't have to be physical, and even though we are socially distancing ourselves, it doesn't mean that it's a physical distancing, but it doesn't have to mean that we're socially distancing. We can still stay really connected through all this wild and divine technology we have at our fingertips. So if any time in humanity this were to happen, I guess we're lucky that it's happening right now with all the resources and podcasts and information and apps and technology, so that we can stay connected with our friends and family and not feel so alone in this. Because imagine how you would feel if this was like the 70s or the 80s, when like technology was really nothing, and it would have just felt a lot different. Let's just put it that way. All Alright, anyways, if you enjoyed this episode, you can screenshot it and tag me on Instagram. All of my information's in the show notes. You can also rate and review the podcast. That's a free way to support the podcast. You just go on iTunes or Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star rating, and you can write a review if you're up to it. I have some giveaways coming up, so just stay tuned for that, and take care of yourself. Do what you have to do during this quarantine. Remember connection, self-care, and all the things.
Shade my soul with colors of blue, and I wait for the day I go back. I wait for the day I go